Hi, I'm Mike Dano, an editor at Light Reading, and today I am very excited to have Mike O'Reilly here to answer all my many questions that I've got written down. For anyone who doesn't know, and I'm sure there's very few of them out there, so Mike O'Reilly is now with MP O'Reilly Consulting, but he is a former FCC commissioner with us today, and you're going to get to talk about all the fun DC stuff. Out there. There's a ton of fun DC stuff, that's Washington DC stuff that is going on right now in our industry, I mean not one keynote session here at the Big 5G show has gone by without at least somebody mentioning something that's happening in Washington DC. And so I've got a lot of questions for you. The first one, and I think certainly the most important, is about the big infrastructure bill that is currently wending its way through Congress. It would allocate, I think it's $65 billion to the telecom industry in various forms. So this is a huge event in our industry. And so my question for you, as a longtime DC insider, former FCC commissioner, somebody who really knows what's going on, how close are we to seeing that? I mean, is this legislation going to pass? What are the chances of it, and when?
Well, look, it's a pleasure to be with you. I'll put my old congressional hat. I spent 20 years on working for both sides of the Congress, and so when I look at what's happening with the infrastructure, and I spend a great deal of time testifying and hoping to shape what the outcome was, I look at this and say we're weeks away from something passing. We've got the agreement that's been cut in the House by the current majority. Looks like it's on a track towards passage. You can debate the content and whether it's good or bad. That's a different issue. But it seems like we're just weeks away, barring some unforeseen circumstance. By the end of September, it looks like we're in pretty decent shape to have that amount of money, be injected into the broadband space.
I am shocked to hear that. We've been talking about it for so long, but the fact that it could be weeks away from, and that means that the money would actually start to come out into the industry relatively. I mean, once it passes.
Not exactly. There's the thing people don't understand. It's still, most of the money now, at least that's how it's drafted, is tied to the new FCC maps. And if I'm looking at FCC maps and where they are in the process, they are certainly trying to improve them. They're working really hard. My former colleagues are working really hard to try and improve them. But I think we're a good bit away. People estimate between a year or 2 years. I don't know if I'd have to do more analysis to determine if that's right, but that means a while away, and everything has to hold on that. And in the meantime, you've got NTIA is going to have to build the program structure, and that's going to take time. So the money's not going to be just, it's not going to be, just thrown into.
We shouldn't just open the fire hose and just hold our bags open to catch all the. Not yet.
There'll be plenty of time for that to happen. Okay. I'm afraid, because I think there's a lot of money that's coming into the industry. A lot of it will be used for good purposes, and I think a pretty good portion of it probably is going to be wasted.
He said, we catch that? Is that on video? We should definitely. Okay.
I think I've testified to that fact.
This is great. Okay, there you go. Straight shooter. All right. So in that case, I've got another question for you that is also very much a question about what's going on in Washington, D.C., which is, so you're a former FCC commissioner right now. The FCC is evenly split between 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans, which is not a normal situation. Typically, there's a majority for the administration that is in office. So what is the holdup? Why have we not seen a Democrat an additional Democrat put onto the FCC that would sort of fill out the commission and sort of get things moving again?
Well, I don't think anyone has a great answer what the holdup is. It's not just the 3rd commissioner, the 5th commissioner. It's also who's going to be the chair. That's probably the bigger question to be answered. And I think once you answer that, you can flow down to the other pieces. If you're going to pick the acting chairwoman, Rosen Russell, my friend, for that slot, then you need one other person. If you're going to go in a different path, well, then you need 2 people. And it might be that they're vetting names right now. In September, the names will pop and they'll polish through the process. I just don't know that to be the case. It doesn't seem to be the case. It seems to be the priority of the commission is lower than other agencies. It's not been that way in the past, but now you see where broadband money is going to NTIA, or the focus on FTC on some matters. So I think it's getting its attention as this administration views it.
Okay. And so you don't have any insight into when we might see someone named as chairperson?
It could be as early September. We could run right into January and have actually what you call a 1-2 commission, which I haven't seen that before.
Wow. Okay. So all right. Well, we'll see on that one. All right. So another question for you. So given your time here, and thanks again for coming and talking. So here's a question about the RDOF, the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. And this is a big program to allocate money for telecom services in rural areas, which could serve as a template for allocation of additional money in the infrastructure bill potentially. Anyway, my question for you though is: so there's a lot of discussion about this Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, the RDOF, and there's a lot of questions about the companies that applied for this money and whether they should be given this money, whether they'll be able to meet their RDOF obligations. So my question for you is, what do you think about that program? Was it a success? Should it be used as a template for the allocation of additional government money? Kind of what's it looking like?
Look, I was a big proponent of RDOF, or some of the principles that went into it. I didn't get everything I wanted. There's some pieces in there that went, I didn't win, and I think that helped led to kind of some of the debate we're having now. In terms of whether it's going to be a model for future use, the answer is no. The infrastructure bill has a completely different model. We're going to NTIA giving out grants to states that apply, totally different structure, almost block grants in some regards with strings attached, but really close to block grants. Whereas the FCC auctioning, using a reverse auction to distribute money efficiently at the, that to me is a better model. It didn't win the day in Congress, and that you have to accept the fate, and that's what they get to do, that as our elected leaders. Now, RDOF itself, the problems that people talk about are actually quite small. In the grand scheme of things worked very well. The reverse auction helped decrease the amount of money that was necessary, make it more efficient, stretch the dollars farther. Those areas that shouldn't have been included, that were mistakenly included, that's a mistake. It should be and can be cleaned up and should be cleaned up, and the Commission's doing that.
Right.
If there are providers that are that now the Commission is scrutinizing, that's what they're supposed to do, and that's exactly what's happening, and they're going through with a fine-tooth comb to make sure those dollars are able, to be spent and actually wisely used. So that's what you want the Commission to do, and so I don't see a huge problem with it. Now, do I think that this is going to get us to RDOF round 2, phase 2? I'm kind of skeptical. Given all of the money that's going on in infrastructure, if we put $43 billion for broadband coming in from the infrastructure bill, I don't know that you want to do a phase 2 over here from RDOF. I'm not sure that that's the best use of the dollars. That's for those still in government to decide. But it seems to me that there's enough problems with RDOF that you probably would hold back that funding and determine later on whether to go forward.
Okay. Yeah. Super interesting. And just a quick follow up on
Sure.
that. So the block grants that NTIA is going to allocate is part of the reason for that it would go faster? Or do you think it would go slower, that allocation process that's included in the infrastructure bill?
I think it will go, in some instances, because it's state by state, some will go faster and some will go slower.
Okay.
A portion of the money is by formula. Each state gets a minimum of $100 million, and then the rest of it's by application. And some states have their act together, and some states don't. And we know that to be the case.
Yeah.
And you're still waiting on FCC maps to make it all work together. So there's still some pieces, and I think the answer, to underlying your question, why this model versus the other model, I think there's a number of people who were drafting the legislation that didn't like what happened in RDOF, and they were told that some bad things happened, and so they went a different approach. I don't know if I would have advised them to do so, but that's what they get to do.
All right. Well, we'll be watching it with interest. I'm sure it'll keep probably both of us busy for a while still on. So last question for you is about CBRS. And the reason is because you had a major role in the development of CBRS spectrum, and then the CBRS auction, and now companies are actually using that spectrum for various services. So maybe you could just give sort of like a look back at CBRS, like what's your final judgment on that whole process? Like, what do you have to?
It's interesting to see it at this time and point after how long I've been into the debate and how long we struggled and fought to get to landing spots that people took a lot of shots at, disagreed with, and I think now everyone's generally comfortable in how we decided how the auction was going to be run, how the licenses are going to be awarded, the size and different things. I think people are generally accepting of where we landed. There's still some improvements to be made. Power levels need to be increased, but I'm really excited about what's happening in the marketplace. There was just an announcement yesterday by Qualcomm and Ericsson on a first call that they had just done with a new technology over the 5G. I mean, really exciting stuff that we had always thought was going to happen. We always knew was going to happen, but now it's actually here, and it's not in regulators' hands or former regulators' hands. It's in the industry's hands. It reminds me kind of, when I look at the debate on like ORAN and where we are there as it relates to, how far we've come on CBRS. I think we'll look back in 5 or 6 years and see the debate on ORAN and go, oh yeah, we got a lot of that right, we got some of it wrong, and the debate was really interesting. And that's where I think CBRS is. We did a lot right. Things are in really good place. I'm really excited to, see where industry goes with it going forward.
Super cool. Mike O'Reilly, thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks.